Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Trade Show, and today's episode involving trading for some studs, flipping 26 and 27 firsts, and some back end action as well with some smaller players. We'll get into a couple of those deals as well. And as always, we've got Matt English joining us in the house. How we doing this morning, Matt?
Doing very well, thank you. Glad to be back on. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Hot off the heels of a couple deals yourself here. So let's get right into the action. We had three deals go down just this morning. And we're going to start off with the latest one from yours truly here, Matt English, pulling off. This is a 12 team best ball half point tight end premium. This was our max points for league, correct? I believe.
Correct.
Yes. And so you did two deals in succession here. We're going to start off with this big one here where you're grabbing CeeDee Lamb and David Njoku, giving up TJ Hawkinson, Xavier Worthy, and a 26 first you had acquired from CeeDee Velasquez. So why don't we start right off at the top here with CeeDee? Because to me, I'll break it down quick. It's Njoku and Hawkinson cancel each other out, and then you're getting CeeDee for Xavier Worthy in a first, and I'll take that. What are you thinking here, Matt? Or what was your thought process with V. Bollinger here, our resident Vikings fan?
So, well, one, I wanted to improve and beef up my wide receiver room. I had a lot of good receivers, but really only one borderline elite receiver. So I wanted to, and that's, I mean, you can put
Who was your
McConkey
borderline
wherever you
elite
want. He's
guy?
right there on the fringe, right? Huh?
Who was your borderline elite guy at wide
Lad
receiver?
McConkey.
Okay,
McConkey. So
gotcha.
borderline according to rank and value.
Sure.
He's right there on the cusp, but I wanted somebody inside that, and I'm pretty high on CeeDee Lamb this year, so he was one of my targets. And when I started talking to this other manager, it just, I was like, "What do you want for CD?" I just asked him flat out, and he told me what he wanted. I built a trade, and did a little back and forth, and eventually settled on this, which I was happy to oblige to this deal. So if he's happy and I'm happy, it's a win-win. So,
Makes
but by making
world a
this
happy
move,
place.
it allowed me to do some other things, which we'll see in the next trade. Um, but it definitely bolsters my receiver room. And you said Hawkinson and Njoku cancel each other out. I put them in the same tier, and that was an easy concession for me to make.
Yeah, I think from V. Bollinger's standpoint, I know he's a Vikings fan, but he still generally does value his guys, pretty rigidly with the other players in the league. But I do think that he probably is valuing Hawkinson as a jump up from Njoku, which I can kind of understand if your thought process is there. I mean, everybody's got Hawkinson ranked ahead of Njoku for the most part. I just, like you said, feel like they're pretty much in the same tier, especially when you're talking best ball. Like, we're playing 17 weeks here if you're in all the playoff games. How many weeks out of the year really are you looking at them getting into your lineup? When you have a Bowers or McBride, you're hoping on those guys getting into your lineup like at least 15 or 16 times, right? When you're looking at a Hawkinson and a Njoku type, you're jumping down to the 9, 10, or 11 times a season range. And so I don't know that Hawkinson is really getting into your lineup much more than a Njoku. And then when you look at Xavier Worthy's a little maybe polarizing, you could call him, but people differ on him, especially with Rishi Rice coming back this season, potentially fully healthy and no suspension. With that, you know, I'm one. I don't love Xavier Worthy. I don't own too much of him. Um, but I don't know. Like when you drafted Xavier Worthy, what were your thoughts on him initially?
Well, I didn't actually draft him. I made a deal that
You
brought him
do.
in,
Okay. Okay.
and
So you dealt for him.
at the time that I made the deal, uh, we didn't have a lot of news out on Rishi Rice and where he
Hmm.
was in his recovery and coming back. So I made the deal under the assumption that he was going to be a top two target um, for at
Yeah.
least the beginning of the season, right? And
Right.
but as more information has come out, I've just grown less attracted to that asset. Rice is going to be back apparently fully healthy for week one. The suspension is still kind of hung up over there because we don't know, but even still, it could be pushed to next year, even if it was going to happen. So, and with Kelsey still there, I just figured, I don't know, Kansas City's really good at spreading the ball out. So with two target monsters in Rice and Kelsey there already, it just made it a little bit more volatile for me to hold on to that, especially seeing how I want to be young, but I also I want to go for it this year too. So a move had to be made.
Yeah, now we've done a number of startups, and Xavier Worthy is sure he's kind of an exciting guy to buy in the fifth, maybe sixth round. I don't know where he's. I mean, I think he's going right around in the fifth round. Um, he's got some nice possible upside, but like you mentioned with Rasheed Rice and Kelsey, if they're both healthy and playing, like where does that leave Worthy? You know, does that even get him to what Devonta Smith does in Philly,
Hmm.
right? I mean, Andy Reid's good at being creative and manufacturing touches for Xavier Worthy, but at the same time, like it just I don't know if that volume that he was getting at the end of the season is going to be there right away. Like
Right.
he did noticeably get more looks late in the season, right?
Hmm.
But whether or not that actually transfers over into 2025, it remains to be seen. Because again, you mentioned Kelsey. Like, how much work does Kelsey get? And if Rasheed Rice is there, like I'm looking at Rasheed Rice as I've loved him all off season trying to get a hold of him at his
Hmm.
current price tag because I think he's got top 10, even top 5 potential. So that kind of leaves Xavier Worthy just on the whims of how good the offense actually is, right? How many red zone opportunities does he get? Because that's where he gets the creative looks. You know, like
Right.
Kelsey takes the snap and then shovels it to Worthy, whatever. You know, I mean, Reed comes up with all sorts of crazy stuff. But as far as a consistent like target hog, I think we pretty much agree that Rasheed Rice is going to be that dude
Yeah.
if he's healthy, you know. And so yeah, where does that leave Worthy? Whereas you're gaining an asset like CeeDee Lamb here, and I don't think any of us is scared of him losing targets because of the acquisition of George Pickens. I mean, I actually just think it's even better for Lamb because Pickens is a guy that defenses have to pay attention to for the long ball, at least for sure. And it just makes the Cowboys' offense as a whole better,
Yeah.
really, and it gives them more scoring opportunities and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm not scared of CeeDee Lamb losing any production. In fact, it
No,
might
I'm
be
actually
better this
more
year.
excited this year for
Yeah, it
CD
might
with
be.
the acquisition of Pickens. So
Absolutely,
I'm
for
more on
sure.
board with CD Lamb than I've ever been. So he's look. I'll tell you this: of those top three, four receivers,
Yeah,
CD's probably the most affordable, and I think
right.
it's worth it to go after him and
Yeah,
pay
I mean,
the
you're not. Yeah,
market
you're
value.
not getting this done. This deal, if you sub in Chase or Jefferson, I don't think
Not
this
done,
kind of
not
deal is
happening.
getting done. Not at
Yeah,
all.
it's
Right?
not
You could
happening
even
for neighbors
take
either.
You could even take Njoku out of this deal, and I don't know that somebody's trading Chase or Jefferson for this haul. I mean, it's a nice, solid haul. You're getting good player in Worthy, good player in Hawkinson, and a 26 first. All nice pieces, but when you really break them down, they're all like fifth, sixth, or seventh round startup picks, right? Are you trading one of your cornerstones for 3 6 rounders?
Probably not.
Like, I mean, it is best ball, so he is getting one extra asset here, but he's not going to realize it until next year. So that brings us into the next deal, right? Which you completed these deals pretty quickly. So you had one deal just sitting in the hopper, so to speak. And we'll bring
that was
that
the
one
deal
up
that was
here.
sitting in the hopper. He had
Okay.
Bollinger countered to get to that one. So the other one I had countered back. He just responded very quickly. But yeah, this is the order they actually happened into. The CD deal went through first, followed by the McCaffrey deal. Same league.
All right, so here we are with the other deal. And this one involved you getting CMC a 27 first and a 27 third for Travis Hunter 26 second and 27 fourth. Okay, so let's look at this. So on one side you've got Hunter and a 26 second. On the other side, McCaffrey and a 27 first. Now we'll eliminate the third and fourth. I know it's a little nice kicker for you there, but we'll eliminate those for the discussion here. When you're talking bigger assets, we'll get those on the side. So Hunter in a second for McCaffrey in a first. Let's start with that part of it. So Hunter is going roughly in the third round of startups, McCaffrey somewhere in the fifth or sixth round, and then you get the 27 first and 26 second. So let me start with the 27 first. Did you want a 26 or a 27 first from the Reaper here, or did you have the choice?
No, I wanted the 27.
You wanted the 27. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you see, when you're going out and looking for first rounders right now, you are on the side of getting 27s over 26s right now.
I mean, really, it doesn't matter because, and I know there's this discrepancy where the 27s are worth more than the 26 right now on some sites, and that's fine. The thought is, I guess, that next year's draft class is very dependent on one person going into that class, which fine, values on that will stabilize throughout the season, and once the season's over, people are going to get super hyped up for the draft again, and the values are going to go back up. So that's not really my point. I look at what I feel is going to be available in 27, and I just think it's a thicker talent pool. So I just rather have more invested there, because those are the assets I'm going to be most interested in. I'm fine at next year is going to be a bigger quarterback draft. Great, I'm fine at quarterback. I don't need to spend a ton of draft capital on a quarterback next year. So I'd rather just put it into the Jeremiah Smith lotto and see what happens. Plus, I hold your first. I hold your first in 27, not my own. So I'm figuring either one of our first is probably going to be later on in the draft. So I'd rather take another spin on the wheel of, hey, how early can this pick be?
Right.
So.
Yeah. So are you? That brings up an interesting point. When you mentioned that you now have two 27 firsts and no 26 firsts. So, do you like having 2 firsts in one draft and 0 in another, as opposed to 1 in each draft? I guess.
That's a fun question. I think I'd rather have multiple in a draft than 1 and 1. I'd rather take 2 pulls from the same pool as opposed to 1 from each. Just increases
it's an interesting thing
in a class, right? So,
right, you then have some leverage in a draft, and I haven't really implemented that strategy this year as much as I would have liked to in in startups, but I did do that last year in the birdhouse where with Hergod, I flipped my whole 25 draft for his 26 draft.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah, I
was
remember you
because
did
there
that.
weren't many trades getting done. And I just asked him, I'm like, hey, do you want to gain some leverage somewhere in this league? And that was one way we did it. So we traded all of I gave him my first, second, third, and fourth in 25. And he
Mhm.
gave me his first through fourth in 26. And yeah, it was interesting because then, well, as the season played on, you know what happened. I ended up trading away a bunch of the capital that I had gotten
Right.
anyway. But
Hmm.
it paid off in the end. But now I'm left with a whole lot of nothing with draft capital. Um, but I'll take the title. You know,
Right.
a championship heals all those wounds for sure. But back to your
Yes, it
deal
does.
here. Let's get back to your deal here. So you got McCaffrey. Let's talk McCaffrey versus Hunter right off the bat.
Yeah.
So McCaffrey obviously poses some risk, but that reward for McCaffrey could be huge. Like McCaffrey easily could outscore Hunter this season, right? And then but
Yep.
after this season, then it gets a little testy. Um, so I don't know how many Hunter shares are you sitting on right now? Is that part of the reason maybe you were willing to get
Well,
rid of him? What are your
yeah,
thoughts there
actually,
with Hunter?
I had like, I don't know, I had several shares of Hunter, but in one league I traded him straight up for Drake London, um, which we may or may not talk about later. And then I traded
Yeah,
him
we'll get
here,
to
but
that one.
I traded him in leagues where it's offense only, where there's no IDP real
Yeah,
incentive or slot.
yeah. I
So
think in
it's
this
kind of
one
like
he
just
gets.
maximizing the capital that I have in him to get soak as much as I can out of that pick. Because in this league in
Yeah.
particular, in the rookie picks, I took him fifth overall, and I
Okay.
think the way I thought about it too is, would I trade the number five pick for Christian McCaffrey in a first? Yeah, probably. So
Right.
I just kind of felt like I'm kind of soaking out whatever value I can from where Hunter sits now.
Hmm.
And go from there. I still think he's going to be like 80% offense. I don't think they're going to play him a lot of defense this year. I, I
Yeah.
just don't. I don't think you put that much draft capital into a guy to play cornerback. I just don't. Um,
No.
so I think he'll play a lot of offense. That's not the problem. It's really just a matter of I want a chance at actually to go for the title. CMC is going to give me that. I don't think Hunter's going to give me title winning upside like Christian McCaffrey does this year. So it's really shuffling my 26 first into my 27 first and giving myself a better shot to win the title this year. Which is
Yeah.
what I
So
want to
if
do.
you
I mean, if you look at the deals I just made, it
right.
kind of puts
Yeah.
me right on your heels in that league, competition wise for the title. So I think I made the
In
right
the
moves.
yeah in the max points league this is yeah.
Yes.
Um. So yeah, all told, you got CD, and if we cancel out the tight ends, you got CD, CMC, and a 27 first for Hunter, uh, Xavier Worthy, and a 26 first. Like that looks pretty darn good. I mean, because you take CD over Hunter, and then Xavier Worthy and McCaffrey, you can pretty much cancel each other out because if you want to go by startup value, they're pretty much
Right.
going in the same range, right? And
Yep.
then you're just flipping the 26 first into a 27 first, which is advantageous for you in two counts because 27 firsts are technically slightly more valuable right now. Plus, it gives you that second first round pick in 27 as well.
Right.
So, yeah, the details here really play out to your advantage with these two combined trades as well. I don't hate this trade for the Reaper. On his side, he's looking at it like, hey, I'm getting out of all that risk with McCaffrey. and he's obviously hoping that this 27 first is later, and he's jumping into the Travis Hunter Bowl, if
Lottery.
you will, where you're hoping, we're all hoping, everybody who has him, and I've talked him up all off season. I'm not out on him by any means. There's been nothing from the OTAs or anything to speak down on him at all, or like that they're going to play him 50% of the time on defense and he's only going to get a few snaps. No, he's going to be out there the majority of the time on offense, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, that gives him the opportunity still to possibly, get into that top 10, top 5 wide receiver range in Dynasty. But at the same time, there is that risk, and you've got Brian Thomas Jr. there still. And can Trevor Lawrence, feed both of these guys into top 10 status? It's not an easy task, because there's only so many targets that go around, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm still making the bet on Travis Hunter. It's not like I'm doing some kind of fire sale on my shares on him at all. So I don't hate this deal from the Reaper side either. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Next trade up. I gotta slide this. All right, here we go. All right, so this deal here is in our Crash and Smash League. 12-team best ball, Superflex, tight end premium with IDP. So this is an IDP special we've got here for you. Now this one in particular, the sacks and interceptions are worth 6 points each. So when you're talking IDP leagues, it really comes down to how many points are you awarding for sacks and interceptions, because tackles are one thing, right? Whether they're getting a point or 2 points per tackle, that definitely helps those middle linebackers, the Zaire Franklins of the world, but it also helps the bums that are middle linebackers as well. So all of the linebackers get pumped up when you push up the amount of tackles. Where it really comes into play is the sack artists and the defensive backs, the chess pieces, those safeties that can move around, like Antoine Winfield and who else? Minka Fitzpatrick types, right? But most notably, the sack artists, like T.J. Watt here, who was getting shipped out by B. Wyke to Fossboss, who really wanted that T.J. Watt. And basically what he gave up, I mean, you could cancel Corum and Sampson out. I guess they're pretty equal. So T.J. Watt for Calvin Ridley and a second. Now, T.J. Watt typically goes pretty high in most IDP leagues. Again, depending on how much sacks are worth, he may go higher. But in this format, I guess he's kind of middle of the road. I mean, Watt is a little older, but defensive players tend to play longer as well. So I don't hate that. I lean the Fossboss side here, getting TJ Watt. I think he's a bigger difference maker. Calvin Ridley, I like, but he's more somebody that kind of just, he fills in a spot for you, right? He's an innings eater type guy at wide receiver, right? He plugs in as your 5th or 6th wide out, and he's good to have. But he's not going to make a huge difference unless he has like a Terry McLaurin resurgence from last year because of a new rookie quarterback. And that's still on the table, but that percentage of that happening is probably low. I don't know. Where do you sit on this one, Matt?
I'm with Fossboss on this deal because he's getting a starter. TJ Watt's going to start on
Yeah.
his team, right? I mean, you got to start 3 IDPs in this league. TJ Watt's probably going to start. Um,
Yeah.
can't say that, and he'll probably be in the lineup more times than not. And Blake Corum, okay, great. Dylan Sampson, like you said, they kind of cancel each other out. I know Sampson's a little bit more exciting. He's a
Sure.
rookie, so it's fresh, and you know
Yeah.
the backfield isn't determined yet as far as touches, but I don't know. This is one of those deals. It's kind of one of the nitty gritty, ugly deals that take place and no one really wants to talk about. But um, I'm leaning with Foss on this one. I mean, if you get a starter out of the deal, we don't know what Ridley's going to be doing this year with the rookie quarterback. Sampson was the second running back drafted by Cleveland this year, so a lot of question marks on the B-White side. I mean, yeah, you get a pick, but yeah, I'm if I'm Foss, I'm pretty happy and pleased with my deal here.
Yeah, I don't think it's a terrible deal from the BYK side. It's not like this is
It's not
egregious.
terrible.
No.
It's not terrible.
I just
but if I
think
got to pick a
that
side,
yeah, if I got to pick a side, I'm going to take the side with the better player, and I feel like Watt is the better player, the best player in the deal.
yeah,
And you can backfill Ridley with some other wide receiver somehow. TJ Watt, though, is not somebody you can just replace with. I mean, yes, you can try to replace him with a bunch of sack artists, but you'd have to pick like 3 dudes to try and get into your lineup as often as TJ Watt will.
yeah.
So yeah, we're leaning Foss Boss on this one. Give Chad some shout out here. He thinks we hate him because we always rag on him for his deals. But hey, we'll give you your props when they're due, Chad. Just win some deals, and then we'll give you your proper shout out here. All right. So good job, Foss Boss, on that one. All right, now we got a little smaller one, but one that could turn out to be bigger. All right, so in this one this is our, which league was this here? Not max points. This was, trying to remember which league this was. It's a 12-team best ball. Okay. I'll look it up to make sure on the scoring. But in general, it's a best ball format. 12-team. And so we had Fossboss getting a 26-second, basically him getting out on Anthony Richardson for a 26-second, and Hergot taking the spin on the wheel of Anthony Richardson. What are your thoughts on this one?
So I made a deal for Richardson pre-rookie draft where I traded J.J. McCarthy for Richardson and what was the 11th pick, I think. I got the 11th pick.
Okay.
And Richardson for McCarthy. And with that 11th pick, what did I take? I think I took Caleb Johnson. So I got Caleb Johnson for McCarthy. Caleb Johnson and Richardson for McCarthy. So I think giving up a second. If I'm Hergot, I'll take this spin all day long. If I'm giving up a second round pick, a future second rounder for someone who's going to probably start some games this year at quarterback, and if he hits, this is, in my opinion, it's low risk, super high reward opportunity. I mean, if you miss, okay, you gave up a second for a backup quarterback, but if you hit,
right,
you just made an unreal deal. So, and especially if Hergot's competing this year, taking the upside in Richardson, I think it's a smart deal. I would lean Hergot here, not knowing any other pieces, just on the gamble of the low risk, high reward.
Yeah.
So,
I'm trying to figure out which league this was from. Best ball, maybe.
Yeah. because regardless of the scoring here, you got Richardson's upside as a rusher, which is great, and he does offer the deep ball. As inaccurate as he does offer you the big play ability with his arm and legs. So to give up a second, like I said, happily do so for the upside at quarterback, especially in a super flex.
Right. Yeah, this was our best ball mania league that this was done in, and so it's scoring wise, 6 points a touchdown pass. But still, the legs there for Anthony Richardson can lead to huge upside, and so when I look at it, what kind of quarterbacks are you going to be able to get in the second round, right? I mean, this year, look at the quarterbacks that we were drafting in the second round. They're all total dart throws, right? Tyler Shook, Jalen Milroe, right? I mean, there's no guarantees at all, and so you're taking a guy here who at least has some NFL experience. Granted, it's been kind of wishy-washy, right? When Richardson's looked good, he's looked absolutely fantastic, right? But when he's looked bad, he's looked
Really bad.
pretty bad. But at the same time, I mean, how much different is he than Justin Fields right now, right? Like if Richardson gets beat out by Daniel Jones, let's say this injury, right? The shoulder thing keeps him from starting week 1, and Daniel Jones actually looks decent, and so it kind of keeps Richardson on the sideline, other than a Daniel Jones injury. Then we're looking at Richardson probably getting dealt somewhere else, and he'll get an opportunity, right? He's not Trey Lance yet, okay? He's not completely washed, and the dude is what? How old is Anthony Richardson? 22?
23?
He's 23? Okay.
23,
Still,
I believe.
you know, it's easy to forget that the guy came in only having started, 15 games in college, right? Yeah. And so the Colts really did him a disservice by starting him out of the gate. They should have let him sit for a year, I think. But you know, they're brass at the same time. He was a top 5 pick, so Jim Irsay at the time he was like right away, no, he's playing, and he looked really good from time to time, but he definitely needs to learn the nuances of passing the ball in the NFL, not only with his accuracy and play calling, switching plays. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it as opposed to college where your natural talent can just kind of take over. Sure, he's good. He's got so much natural ability that it can still take over from very few times in the NFL. But, it's not going to win in the long haul, right? So he does need some work. He just needs the opportunity to blossom, and maybe this year he does get to sit and learn a decent amount. We'll see. All right, let's move on from Anthony Richardson. All this Anthony Richardson talk gets tiresome. You can only give the guy so many opportunities. All right, here we go. Here's your Drake London for Travis Hunter deal. This was in which league? It's a 12-team best ball.
Birdhouse 1.
Birdhouse 1, that's right. So you drafted Travis Hunter at the 103, I believe? 102. Okay. So 102 for Drake London.
Yeah, now let me frame that with I was already stacked at running backs, and I did not need to take a running back at 2, and I could not trade out of the 2 spot. I tried so hard to trade out of the 2 spot, but no one would bite. And anyway, I took Hunter there. And again, if you ask me to look back in retrospect, if I would have been offered Drake London for the 2 pick, I would have taken it. I totally would have taken it.
Sure.
So, in
Absolutely.
the same sense, this is not a deep or an IDP formatted league. So I'm gonna take Drake London over Hunter here. Now, like it's not that just like the other deal. It's not that I don't believe in Hunter's offensive production ability. It's the fact that I've seen it in Drake London, and what I think we saw at the end of last year with Michael Penix coming in for the final few games, and what that did for Drake London's production in fantasy football and in real football. I'd rather hitch my wagon to that caravan, so to speak, as opposed to what's going on in Jacksonville.
Yeah, in a league where there's no extra points for defense, yeah, I'm leaning the London side all day here. They both have a similar ceiling, whereas London has a better floor. It's really
Yeah.
that simple. And so, yeah, I'm going to take Drake London here. It's unusual to get these straight up swap deals happen, but when you get an opportunity for it, like, and it's an easy bet like that where the ceiling is the same but the floor is higher on one side, give me the side where the floor is higher all day. And it's not like Drake London's that old. Like, what is he, 25? So I mean,
Yeah.
you're only
still in
gaining
his
a couple. Yeah, he's just getting into his prime right now, and him and Penix could produce some magic that vaults London into that top 5 status potentially. I don't know if it will happen, but if Penix continues that high, even 30% or more target share to London, like, yeah, that's going to be some good numbers for London, because it's going to be really impossible for Hunter with Brian Thomas in the mix. It's going to be almost impossible for Hunter to get a 30+% target share down in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Barring an injury. I mean, an injury changes everything, obviously, but it does all the time. All right. What do we got next here? All right. This was a smaller one that I did, but nonetheless, still meaningful. So this is in a 12-team best ball. I believe this was Birdhouse number 2. And so I needed a third quarterback. All right, my quarterbacks are Burrow and Tua in that league. Okay, so I wasn't feeling too
Same.
warm and fuzzy about that. And meanwhile, I had Winston and Jalen Milroe I drafted, Will Howard I drafted. So neither of those are going to pan out right away. So in a best ball format, those are going to be zeros for me, right? And so is Winston. Winston was going to be a 0. Now, late last season, Winston was getting me points. But so what I did was I have Winston. I looked for the Jackson Dart owner and the Russell Wilson owner, and I looked to see what they had. And this Trav Bieski, who was the winner of the league last year, I took 3rd or 4th in this league. He has Russell Wilson, and he also had Aaron Rodgers. And being that we don't know if Russell Wilson's going to start every week this year on his performance, I lean towards wanting Aaron Rodgers more than Russell Wilson. And so that's where I pieced this together, and I figured I'd have to give up a little in that you see here, I gave up a 26 second for a 28 third on the backside, right? But I'll take that. You might plug this into a calculator, and I'm sure the 26 second is worth more than probably Rodgers and Winston combined. But I'll take a starting quarterback I'll take a starting quarterback for a second rounder in best ball pretty much all day. As long as I know that starter is going to be playing all season, and as long as Rodgers stays upright, he's going to be the starter there in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
So that's where I was at. I don't know. What do you think about this? Now knowing
No,
some
I
of the
think
context.
I think for a third quarterback that I mean, yeah, like you said, you're giving up a second in Winston, but I mean, I think you're giving up a second round pick to ensure that you have a third quarterback this year. I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything
Yeah.
wrong with that, and I would do something like that too. So
Yeah, it was. I have a contending roster. Like I said, I took fourth in this league last year, and I didn't want to. I mean, again, Tua as your second quarterback, and then nothing behind it. Like that's
yeah,
scary. That's just scary. And so I found basically the cheapest way possible to acquire a third quarterback. This is probably the cheapest way you can do something like that. Um, my only other route would be to roster a bunch of backup quarterbacks and hope for injuries. And in best ball, that's not exactly. It's different. You can do that in lineup league, right? If I had if I had Burrow and Tua as my two quarterbacks in a lineup league, well, then I'm just plugging Tua in every week, right? But in a best ball
right.
format where I'm going up against a bunch of other teams that've got three quarterbacks and the potential to get 20 plus points a week, I just didn't want to rest solely on Tua. Now, Tua and Aaron Rodgers aren't alone. They aren't very exciting, but as a combination, it's nice and cheap. We'll put it that way. It's
Right.
nice and cheap because I acquired Tua last year in a deal where I kind of got him thrown in because somebody just wanted out on him so bad.
Yeah.
So that's where I got him cheap. And that's the only reason I have him because otherwise I'm not totally excited for Tua. But does Rodgers since we're talking about him, does Rodgers in the Pittsburgh system there with Arthur Smith, does that scare you at all? Do you think Rodgers is still going to be able to put up numbers similar to what he did with the Jets last year? I mean, he's still, if you look at his numbers, they were pretty good. His interceptions were up, but fantasy wise, like it was definitely respectable.
I mean, it's going to be a lower passing volume, um, but because of the strength of his run game and being able to dump to either or running back, I think he'll be fine. I mean, he's not going to give you that elite production that he once did, but for him to put up quarterback two numbers, maybe quarterback three numbers, or top of the tier quarterback three in a super flex, I think that's more than reasonable to hope for. So I
Yeah, I
mean, it's
mean
not. I mean,
Pittsburgh.
it's not like. Plus, they've got Fryermuth and now Jonnu Smith. They do have DK. I mean, everything else is kind of a question mark from the receiving game, but I mean, they have the pieces there for him to be successful.
They have Jalen Warren still, Obviously, Arthur Smith's probably going to try and ground and pound with Caleb Johnson as much as possible. But, Rodgers likes to change plays at the line. And I'm sure he's going to upset Arthur Smith here and there by doing so. But at the same time, Pittsburgh's got a good defense, yeah, but they are going to be playing Cincinnati and Baltimore twice just in their division alone. They're not going to be their defense isn't going to give them the lead every first half. Put it that
Right.
way. There's going to be some games where Rodgers is going to have to air it out a little, and whether that means just a bunch of work for the newly acquired Jonnu Smith and Fryermuth, or DK gets some good volume, that remains to be seen. But I'm sure Jalen Warren's going to get his share of dump offs. That's for sure. Rodgers
Yeah.
loves to do that, and so yeah, I think Rodgers will still quietly be efficient, and he'll have his 2 or 3 touchdown weeks, and those are the weeks that he'll slide into my lineup. So Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't mind Rodgers in just about all formats right now. He's about as cheap as they come for starting quarterbacks. And so if you need one, yes, I may have overpaid according to a calculator, but again, as long as you're not including some kind of first, it's fine by me. All right, here we go. We've got this was your deal.
Hmm.
There we go. You and the Reaper getting into it. Now this was which league was this? Is this a new one?
Birdhouse one.
Birdhouse 1?
Yeah.
Okay. So Birdhouse 1, you and the Reaper got into a deal here involving AJ Brown and Caleb Johnson to you. On the
Hmm.
other side, Isaiah Pacheco, RJ Harvey, a 26 first and 26 third. So, well, we've got Caleb Johnson and RJ Harvey there. You can kind of cancel them out. They go pretty darn close to each other, whether it's a rookie draft or startup. I've seen either of them go ahead of the other guy just as often. Um, so then you have AJ Brown for Pacheco, a 26 first and a third. What are your thoughts there? This is your deal. So, what were you trying to get there?
Yeah. So this was a league that I was really strong at running back, but had no receivers really. I mean, my lead receiver before the London and Hunter trade in this deal was going to be Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
had to make some moves here. And so I got in London, and then I was just looking for something that would be more affordable to compete this year. And AJ Brown's a guy that I really like. I know Philadelphia is not a high passing volume team, but I do like both of their receivers because of the quality of target that they do receive. So they're super efficient from that standpoint, which is attractive to me. So to get AJ Brown, even though I know he's going to lose value just on his age, even if he put up Justin Jefferson numbers for the next 2 years, he's just going to be losing value. And I understand that fully, but he's a piece that can help me win. And I had an extra first. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a late first in this league. So I gave up what I consider a late first. And Isaiah Pacheco, the third, you can throw that in there too for AJ Brown. I don't know. I just felt like I want the best player in the deal, and I've got a 26 first that I don't value that much. I love Caleb Johnson, so let's plug in all the pieces and get the ones I want. Thankfully, it didn't take a ton of back and forth on this one to get those pieces. I'm making moves to to win, right? These aren't deals I would make if I'm rebuilding or anything like that. I'm specifically trying to win, and this is why I stack draft capital. It's why I stack younger players, is so that I can do deals like this. So at the end of the day, I may not draft myself a title, but I can trade my way to one, and that's what this is. Right? I know I'll lose value at the end of the day on this. However, it gives me the opportunity to win right now, which is what I'm trying to do. So,
yeah. No, I think this was a deal that was a win-win for both sides. The Reaper was trying to get younger. He doesn't feel really that he's going to win it this year. Now, again, it's best ball, so you don't want to totally put yourself out of the picture, which he didn't. I mean, there is the shot that Pacheco bounces back this year from his injury last season. There is that chance. It's not a bet I'm making right now. I don't like that bet, but that's because I love Brashard Smith, and so I'm hoping that he's the guy. And I know you are as well, so
yeah.
that's basically part of the bet you're making in getting rid of Pacheco. But the point being, from the Reaper side, he's getting that 26 first now that he might not be able to get in the future for AJ Brown. Like if he kept AJ Brown this year, and like you said, even if AJ Brown has a good season this year, he's going to be another year older next off season, and now you're talking he's getting into that, you know, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams type thought process across the dynasty world. And so then you're going to have people like, I don't even know if I want to give up a first for him. And
Hmm.
I'm not saying that's how it is right now. It's not right now. You're still at least getting a first for AJ Brown. Probably a first and second, I'd say, is what AJ Brown's value is right now. And if you're trying to win, like I'll take an AJ Brown for a first and second right now, because there's no other dude that you can get the kind of potential where he could finish top five, right? As long as he stays healthy, his efficiency is through the roof. It's always been. That's the way he is. So you mentioned the Philly pass volume, but that hasn't made a difference. That hasn't mattered for the last 3 years, and I don't think it's going to matter for this year, right?
Right.
And so we know what we get with AJ Brown. You're getting points, and yes, he may die on your roster now, but if this is what you had to do to give up to get him, basically a first and Isaiah Pacheco, I'll do that. I'll do that all day, because
Yeah.
I
If it
mean,
gets me into the
AJ,
Super Bowl, I want it.
exactly.
Yep.
Yes, if it gets you into the money, then you won the deal, right? And I'll take the odds that AJ Brown does it more so than Isaiah Pacheco for sure.
Yeah.
So I get this deal all day. All right, so please be sure to hit the like and subscribe. We've been pulling all of these deals straight from our Patreon here, you see. And as you can see in the background here, this is what you get if you join up now in the Patreon. It's patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show, just $3 a month. This is one of the special portions that you get access to by joining. You get into our chat forum here, and you can see many of the members in here talking about the different trades and what their thoughts are on that deal. You can discuss a trade before it happens so that you get a couple of others' opinions. That's where I think it's most valuable, honestly, because even myself, as much as I love to trade, when it comes down to it, when I'm looking at a deal and then I get an offer or vice versa, I'm not always 100% sure, but sometimes I'm heavily leaning one side and I just need one person to kind of kick me over the edge and be like, yeah, dude, do that. Duh.
Yeah.
Like, and
I
that's
think we
what
all
it
do
is
sometimes,
sometimes.
right?
Absolutely. It feels good to get that reassurance, right?
Yeah. Well, you need that. You need that objective point of view sometimes to be like, what are you hesitant on here? If this was not your team,
Right.
you would have pulled this trigger 3 days ago. Before the deal was even offered, you'd have said yes, right? So,
Yeah.
or you'd have said no, whatever. But yeah, it's good to have a community there, people you can bounce things off of. Heck, I value it. There's guys in that chat that I hold them in high regard when it comes to decision making in fantasy. And I think there was one in there. I was like, so I post a trade in here and I get no comments. And then boom, I get flooded with a couple of comments on it. But everyone was at work.
Didn't take long. No.
So,
Right.
but
So
I want that input.
yeah. I mean, it's just talking about trading in general. It's hard sometimes to give up on guys that you at one point had conviction on, right? I mean, at some point you either drafted these guys or you made a trade for a particular player, and now all of a sudden you're looking to get rid of them, right? And so you have in that back of of your mind, you have that ceiling that you had hoped for, but now situation may have changed. Now they may have drafted somebody, a new coach might have come in, and so there's a lot of different things that go into the values of players, and when somebody who you held in high regard at one point, their value starts falling. That's when it gets tough, right? Do you get out before they hit the floor, or do you hold on to that hope that they bounce back? And so that's the tricky part of it. And yeah, it always helps having a a second or third opinion, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, here's a perfect example of that. A few years ago, I drafted Quentin Johnson in a rookie draft, and I was
Oh
very
yeah,
convicted on that. I was like, look, I got all these receivers pretty close. I'm gonna put my money on the bigger guy, right? And
yeah,
that's what I did, and I was pretty strong in that. And after that first year of drops and not getting on the field, and all the rumors about QJ and how he got in Kellen Moore's doghouse, um, I had to put him into a trade because I was just like, I don't want to be a part of this guy anymore. I still felt like there's still a chance there, but I let him go. I let him go, and he found his way back to me, just thrown into another deal. But I tell you what, since I made that first trade off someone I felt convicted about, like midway before I was totally out on the guy, it made it a lot easier for me to start seeing other assets the same way. Does that make sense? All of these
yes,
players are tradable for the right price. So where there's
yes,
guys I love and want to keep forever until they die, understand you're probably going to trade them before they die on your roster anyway, or drop them.
yeah,
So why not soak out the most value when you can and move on to the next big
yes,
thing, regardless if you like them. You know?
right. Now Alan has chimed in here. Except if the person reassuring you is somebody in your league trying to sabotage you. Well, that's why, yes,
True.
you definitely, it definitely helps getting an opinion of somebody outside of your league or somebody not in direct competition with you. Yes. Now, then he goes on and Anthony Richardson Bender here. I know he owns Anthony Richardson in quite a few leagues, and he says he's just going down with the ship. Well, that's one way to put it. At least you have conviction on him, and you're gonna hold strong on it, right? Yes.
There's a lot of capital put into Anthony Richardson in real life and in fantasy world. So
Well, last year he was going in the first round in some startups. I mean,
startups,
that's a
yeah,
hard pill to swallow to give him up for a second rounder right now,
yeah,
right? Like, you think that's just, oh, yeah, just get rid of all your Anthony Richardsons. No, like, he was the pillar of your franchise when you
yeah.
selected him in a startup last year. Like, he was your boomer bust. He was going to be the guy that was going to lead you to a title. And now it's a different proposition. He's going anywhere from round 9 through 11 or 12 in
Yeah.
startups, and I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Jones goes ahead of him now in startups. Um,
Good. Allow that to happen. If Daniel
that, I
Jones goes
mean,
before AR, I will take that discount on Anthony Richardson in a startup all day long. Because, like I said, when we were evaluating that trade, if the guy hits, if he gets in this year and has improved, or he sits for this year and then comes back next year in a different team, the, it'll be through the roof value wise. Just like, I mean, kind of in a sense, like if you think about Justin Fields, I mean, that dude was going for peanuts for the
yeah,
most part. And then here he is 2 years later. He's the starter for the Jets, reunited with his one of his college wide receivers, and he has the reins to the ship. I mean, most people are saying, yeah, get in on Justin Fields. He's a top 5 quarterback. You know,
right.
so if Richardson gets on the right team and improves a little bit, you could be sitting on a top 5 quarterback that you drafted in the 9th to 11th round. And
Yeah,
besides, at that point, you're okay taking an investment pick, right? You would think if you're taking
yeah.
Anthony Richardson 9th, 11th round. I mean, you're willing to take an investment hit there. Why not?
Now let's talk more about the because Alan's bringing up a few points here. Going back to last season, there were a number of people that took Richardson, right? And
Hmm.
now the pressure is on. Do you give him up for that second rounder, or do you hang on to him? Like if you're, I think it comes down to your roster construction. Really, for me, are you rebuilding or are you contending? Okay, if you're contending and you have him as your, like, let's say you actually do have two other good quarterbacks, then I'm a little more willing to maybe give him up for a producing wide receiver or something. But Allen's bringing up the point of, well, if you drafted him in the first round of a startup and now you're giving him up for a second rounder, like that's a huge value loss that's hard to recover from.
Hmm.
Like that's giving up like three firsts for a second,
Yeah.
right? But do you want to do that as a dynasty owner in general? You know, fall into that sunk cost fallacy, so to speak. That's what he's talking about essentially, right? Well, he
Hmm.
was once worth three firsts. Now I want to get that second, so I at least get a second before he becomes Trey Lance, and you can't even get a thing for him.
Yeah.
Because there is that possibility, right?
Right.
There is that possibility. Um, and so that's the volatility of quarterbacks, and you could get into even deeper discussion on why the value of the quarterbacks have slid a little overall, right? In the beginning of the startups, and the wide
Hmm.
receivers have risen. You know, we've
Right.
seen more wide receivers are going in the first round of the startups. Brock Bowers is going in the first round of startups,
Mhm.
but last year there were what, eight, nine, or 10 quarterbacks going in the first round of
Yeah.
startups. Not so many this year, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
just saw Jalen Hurts go at the 12th pick. He barely stayed in the first round.
Yeah.
So we had five quarterbacks going the first there, but a lot more wide receivers going there, and I think it's partially because people are a little scared, right, of that
Yeah. Well, like we
volatility.
said, I mean, the hit rates on top end wide receivers are much better. They're more liquidable in the trade market. Because if you do have a top quarterback, chances are most people aren't going to pay the price tag to take them off your hands. Do you know how hard it is to get rid of Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels? It is stupid hard because people don't want to pay
Yeah,
the price
you're
tag.
right,
You know,
right.
so
And that's the problem with
uh,
drafting a Brock Bowers in the first round. You draft Brock Bowers in the first round, like, yeah, he looks nice, but he's a parked asset. Like, he's sitting on your, like,
yeah,
who do you
people aren't
think is
trading for
more,
tight ends.
who is more fluid, Brock Bowers or Justin Jefferson? You
Jefferson.
could you could easily trade Justin Jefferson, but you try and convince somebody that's got Mark Andrews on their team, Mark Andrews, right? You try and convince somebody that has Mark Andrews on their team that they need Brock Bowers. It's tough. Like,
Yeah.
whereas if the same person, you're telling them, yeah, it'd be nice to upgrade from Calvin Ridley to Justin Jefferson. Well, that
Oh hell
looks a
yeah, it would be.
whole lot more exciting, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
it's again, it gets into the liquidity of the market, and receivers are just the better bet. They are the better bet. I love dual elite quarterbacks. I do. What's really cool is because the market has shifted, at least in startup drafts, you can get dual elite quarterbacks pretty easily now. But it's really hard to get a trio of elite to super high end receivers now. You have to do a lot of maneuvering and shuffling to do it.
yeah.
But it's still possible. It's still possible. But again, like you
Yeah.
said, I'd much rather take the receiver there in that first round pick as opposed to a quarterback that's going to be parked there forever.
Yeah. And Alan asks too, do you guys feel you should be uh, based off of what happened with Anthony Richardson and some others who go back, Trey Lance, should you be more focused on drafting a safer asset in the first round of your startups? And yeah, absolutely, you should. That's your first round pick, like you mentioned, Alan, is essentially in most cases worth like three first round rookie picks. And so, hell yeah, you should be drafting a safe asset there. I avoided drafting Anthony Richardson in first rounds of startups. I'll admit I did take him in the second round of a startup last season.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, yeah, I did. Um, and yeah, it it cost me. Now I backfilled it because you draft a player like Anthony Richardson, you have to have a game plan. Okay, you can't just have Anthony Richardson and one other quarterback. Okay, if you're going to draft a risky type player like Anthony Richardson with the injury possibility and the question marks at how he could throw the ball, you had to backfill that by getting another 3 or 4 starting quarterbacks behind it and behind him. And so that's how I did it, but it really isn't ideal. Like, you're way better off just having drafted Joe Burrow last year, right? And even with Burrow's injuries, his value stuck, right? Yeah. He's got Chase and Higgins still there. They did the contract for them both. And but the fact is he's a pocket passer. We know how he gets his points, right? It's kind of the same thing with like Jared Goff in the middle, more of the middle range of the draft, 6th round.
C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud, yes, very safe draft pick versus, say, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is a little more scary. Now, everybody's hoping he got some stability with Ben Johnson there, but it's yet to be seen yet. I'm just thinking of a different running quarterback. The running quarterbacks are where the risk comes in a lot because you go back to like Jalen Hurts.
Was a huge risk.
Jaden Daniels was a huge risk. Yes,
huge risk. Right,
but it's
he
paid
was a rookie
off
last year. What's going to happen in year 2 now that the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, right? Lamar and Jalen Hurts are probably, and obviously Josh Allen. Those are your 3 safest dual threat quarterbacks. Because one, they're the pillar of health. They don't get hurt. They stay healthy. Maybe they miss a game here and there. That's about it. But everything else, it's a risk, and you're absolutely rolling the dice on it. I had a thought to get out on Jaden Daniels in a couple of leagues. To be honest, the problem is I can't find buyers.
Right,
I can't find buyers.
Price is too high now.
Yeah,
exactly. And
I wanted to trade him, Daniels or Lamar, for like McCarthy and London, and couldn't get a deal done.
Yeah,
just too much is what they said.
Right. No, it's tough with those first rounders, and the wide receivers though are more flexible. Like Alan mentions here. Even if you're dealing with somebody who already has an elite wide receiver, they're still excited to add another wide receiver, elite wide receiver.
Oh yeah,
they're overjoyed because we're starting more wide receivers in just about every league for sure, unless it's
I like having 3 top 15 guys in the wide receiver room. I like to have at least
me too.
3. So
for sure. Yeah, depending on the format, unless it's some kind of point per carry league, and even in a point per carry league, I'm not saying a full point per carry, like 0.2 per carry or whatever, where you're artificially just incentivizing running backs to be valued more. We have that in the bottom line league, and I'm stacked up at wide receiver, and I'm doing just fine. We only have to start 1 running back, so I have Bijan, and that's it. Bijan and his backups, and a bunch of bums. And I just stacked up the wide receivers, and even though there's not that artificial point, or there is that artificial point per carry, it still is a full point PPR league.
It's 0.25 or something like that, or 0.2.
Right. Yeah. Right. So the receivers still have good value there. You'd have to be in a real suppressed wide receiver value league for me to just try and do where I'm just stacking up a bunch of receivers after round 8, like rattling off 5 in a row there. I just think I like the value stability of having the 3 elite wide receivers up top and try and build from there. Because I know it's nice having a stud quarterback for sure, but if you're in best ball, you can make up for that in different ways, and even in lineup league, you can make up for that in different ways. Especially this year, where you get some good, solid quarterbacks in rounds 4, 5, and 6. Still,
Oh, yeah.
there's good, solid veteran points you can get out there. So, all right. Well, again, be sure to smash that like and subscribe. Jump in, check out the Patreon, $3 a month. And you can also buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. Matt and I will be back with more episodes coming your way. We're going to do the updated wide receiver rankings video shortly. And so we'll have that awesome information for you where we'll talk even more about wide receivers and their values in the league. Everybody loves the wide receivers, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. With that, I'll remind you, as always, never stop working.